Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. Guess what? Get the flu shot, get the flu. It's kind of like COVID. Get the COVID jab and you can get COVID over and over and over again. Ah, boy, lots to say today. Lots and lots of stuff. Brand new Cleveland Clinic study shows what we all knew: the flu shot sucks. Well, maybe we didn't all know it, but we do now. And it does. It does in every single way, shape, and form imaginable, suck on a monumental level. There's a lot of stuff happening today. I don't know if you guys saw this, but the guy that tried to kill Trump down at the golf course, yeah, he was asking Ukraine for weapons to try and he wanted to get a Stinger missile from Ukraine, probably one of our Stinger missiles, so that he could shoot Trump with a missile. Can you imagine this, folks? This clown wants to get the weapons that we're giving to Ukraine so that he can try and assassinate the president. Now, here's the real question. Does anybody think that Ukraine notified Donald Trump or anybody else? I mean, what did Ukraine do with that information? Nothing. The corruption is mind blowing. Everything we're seeing all over the place is craziness, and it's not really a huge surprise. We knew that this was the level of corruption and just horror that we would be seeing, and as time goes on, I anticipate we're going to be finding out a lot more. But we have a lot to talk about today. I really want to start out with the Supreme Court. The SCOTUS ruled that Donald Trump can, in fact, deport people under the Alien Enemies Act. And that case is really important. But I see Pam Bondi wasted no time getting on Fox News talking about it. However, what she said isn't exactly correct. So we're going to go over that. We're going to talk about it. It wasn't the win it should have been, folks. It should have been a much more decisive ruling, in my opinion. It was a very big deal. This case was a really big deal. The court punted on a lot of things that it shouldn't have punted on. It really, I think they had an opportunity here to do a lot of things, and they just didn't do them. So we're gonna go over that, and then I want to talk more about that Cleveland Clinic study. I want to get to tariffs. Put out quite a thread on tariffs this weekend. If you hadn't seen it, it's there on my Twitter feed. Lots and lots of stuff to talk about, but I want to get going. And before I do, let me thank my sponsors. My first sponsor is me. So please support us at givesendgo.com, givesendgo.com/Renslaw. Givesendgo.com/Renslaw. Become a monthly supporter. A little bit every month helps us tremendously. It makes a world of difference. We do need your help, your assistance, your support. $20 a month. If you can give more, give more. If you can't, whatever. But we're grateful for everyone that helps us. We have a lot of people that do help us. We're grateful. We thank God every time we get people. And, I hope you'll consider. Your support does help us fight for freedom. Also, today, go to TomRenz.com, and you always go to TomRenz.com, right? TomRenz.com, which you have to type. You can't Google Tom Renz, or you'll find only hit pieces on me. If you actually want to go to TomRenz.com, you have to type it in. But go there, go to shops, and get on our partners and affiliates. And scroll down, you see this, Kirk Elliott and Satellite Phone Store, great people. Sherry Tenpenny's got her courses there. I got great air purifiers, Dan Lyons, all sorts of great stuff. But today I want to focus on Heaven's Harvest. New sponsor with us, great people. Use checkout code RENS for 10% off. And you can click on the link right here, heavensharvest.com/Renz. And great stuff. You can get heirloom seeds. You can get prepper material stuff, 25-year shelf life. Just wonderful, wonderful, healthy, non-GMO quality foods. Great stuff. Great new sponsor. We're happy to be working with them. I'd urge you to give them a try. Just see what you think. I think they're good people. I think that they've got great stuff. And, I got to tell you, I don't like vegetables. I'm a carnivore guy. But if I'm going to get something, I do like the homegrown stuff, right? The homegrown stuff isn't bad. And I'll tell you, I make a mean salsa. I will tell you guys, I used to love, side note, you want to know a little personal story? I love cooking. I don't get time to do it very often, but I love cooking. And I will tell you, one of the things I do, my salsa is just, it kicks butt. I got to tell you guys, if I do say so myself. Not great at many things, but there's a couple things. I make mean steak. I do great salsa. I got a few different things I do really well. So anyways, Heaven's Harvest, I kind of like growing my own stuff, and making your own salsa out of your homegrown stuff is just, that's kind of cool to me. I always like that. So anyways, timerents.com, support if you're willing. All right, let's get into this Supreme Court stuff, right? This is a big deal. So let's start out here. Pam Bondi, of course, wasted no time. She doesn't have time to do Epstein. She doesn't have time to put anybody in jail or arrest any Democrats or any Soros operatives. No globalists are going to jail, but she's always got time for Fox News. And here we have Pam Bondi, who immediately came out there, and let's look what she had to say.
Volume time.
Oh, we got to get the sound on here, don't we? Okay, this is really special. Ready? Here's Pam Bondi, who has put 0 Democrat operatives or George Soros figures or Epstein pedophiles in jail. I counted. I did the math this morning, and it's 0. 0 is how many. It took a while. I had to carry the 1, but I figured out it's still 0. Here's what she has to say.
These liberal district judges thought that they could control our entire country's policy, Donald Trump's policy, on keeping America safe. They cannot do it. And this was, again, a landmark ruling for the rule of law yesterday. And it's so important because these flights will now continue. These terrorists, they are foreign terrorists. They are alien enemies to our country, and we will continue to deport them. We are going to keep America safe, and a liberal district judge is not going to stop us. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled yesterday.
Okay. That is literally not what they ruled. I am 90% sure she did not read the case. Okay, the judgment is like 3 pages. In fact, I'm going to show you. Here it is. Let me show you the judgment. Here is the judgment. And I don't think she read it. This is it. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so about 3 pages, right? Because this isn't a full page. It's got the whole headline, caption up top. So about 3 pages, right? And I don't think she read it. Nothing she said was accurate, other than the flights will resume. It was a win. Donald Trump does get to deport people, but there was the courts were asked here. So just so you know, I actually do research. This is the request for relief that was submitted. It's 224 pages that was submitted from Donald Trump and the Justice Department. Now, Pam Bondi did not submit this. I doubt she read it. It was submitted by a Solicitor General, who did a great job on this. It was a great case. They did a good job, but they asked the court to rule on a number of things, and they really wanted to slap the judges down on these kind of nationwide injunctions from the district level. And that is a foundational issue. The court said nothing about that. There is nothing they did to stop nationwide injunctions. They just didn't address it. It's not in here. All they said is that these things can continue. Now let's talk about what this actually said. This was not a landmark or monumental ruling. This was incremental at best. And I'm not trying to be mean here. I appreciate that we can do this. I'm thrilled about this, but let's not lie about what's happening. This is, I gotta be honest, guys. Pam Bondi just seems like a used car salesman to me. She's trying to sell us a hunk of crap and not actually giving us anything. I have not seen, nothing. She's looking for reason after reason to justify her existence. This is not it. This was a win because there was no way around it for the SCOTUS. It's not a win because it was a landmark ruling. It was very incremental at best. Okay, so let's talk about this, right? So let's look at this. This is about the TROs issued by the DC court, and the circuit court affirmed. And the Supreme Court took this case up, right? And they granted the motion to vacate the temporary restraining orders, right? They said, yes, the president can remove people under the Alien Enemies Act, right? And that's a big deal. And they acknowledge that there's very limited review for the courts under the Alien Enemies Act. So the court did signal they don't want any more of this crap. They don't want these in front of them anymore. The court was very clear. Yes, Trump can send these people away. Quit nagging us. We don't want to see it again. That said, the court did not. One of the big things in the request for relief was the discussion about, hey, this was essentially given class certification, backdoor to class certification, and thus opened the door to kind of this nationwide injunction. The Solicitor General is very much asking the court to weigh in on these district judges and their way too overly broad rulings where they do all this stuff. They were definitely asking for that, and the court did not address it. It is absolutely not there. They just completely ignored the question. Had they done that, that would have been a landmark deal. That would have been a big deal, but they didn't. They didn't even come close to that. Instead, they said, yes, we can deport people under the Alien Enemies Act, right? And they go through and they talk about the fact that there are very few things that you can challenge in the Alien Enemies Act. And if you're going to challenge it, you have to challenge it under the writ of habeas corpus, right? The writ of habeas corpus. Now, that is a very important thing. Now, they had brought up the writ of habeas corpus in this initially, but then they dropped it, right? The writ of habeas corpus, now in law, habeas corpus is something that you can do if you're in jail, right? If you're, they actually have control of your person. And it's because we really believe strongly in this country that no one should be in jail without, every single opportunity to prove their innocence. A thousand guilty men should walk free before one innocent man goes to jail. We believe that strongly in this country. Unless you're Joe Biden with regards to J6ers, then he believes they should all be in jail regardless. But anyway, so the writ of habeas corpus, which is Latin, and it means to have the body, right? You have the body. It means that they have control. You're in jail. And what it means is that the court can order for there to be a justification for the prisoner's detention or for the imposition of the penalty, right? So if you're going to be sent abroad, if you're going to go to the death penalty, if you're in jail, you can issue a writ of habeas corpus and explain it, and then the state has to justify why you're there, right? So it's the one thing they can challenge. Now, that is a very important thing because under the Aliens Enemies Act, that's what they're doing. They're deporting these people. Now, the court said that the writ of habeas corpus stands. And actually, now with that, though, also important is the venue is the location that the prisoner is held. Now, that's a very important ruling for Trump. That's very big because that gets him out of these crooked DC courts. And this was a very sly move by the SCOTUS. The SCOTUS knows that the problem is crooked judges in D.C. are going to rule the way crooked judges are. So they were very clear to make sure to remind everybody that a writ of habeas corpus has to be filed in the court where the prisoner is detained. Well, that's Texas, right? So that's where that should have been filed. So the venue is wrong. And basically, nothing Judge Boasberg says has any relevance because he's a piece of crap. And the SCOTUS is trying to take these cases away from people like him because they know that he's a crook, and they don't want to have to say that one of their own judges is a crook. They would rather just say, "Well, the venue was wrong." Okay, so that's no one's going to admit that. That's not very polite for me to say as a lawyer. But that's the reality of what's happening here. I mean, let's just be realistic. That is what's happening. So venue was wrong. And now for all these cases going forward, the venue is going to be wherever the prisoner is, which is a very important thing because that does make it so it makes the forum shopping less of an issue. So one of the results of this case is the end of foreign shopping on these Alien Enemies Act deportations. So that is a very big deal. On the flip side, though, there's also very bad news. And it's not bad news. It's the law. It is what it is. So an alien who is detained has the right to challenge that detention, has the right to challenge all of this stuff, right? So court says detainees also sought equitable relief against summary removal. Although the judicial review under the Alien Enemies Act is limited, we have held that an individual subject to detention removal under that statute is entitled to judicial review as to questions of interpretation and constitutionality of the act, as to what, and as well as whether he or she is in fact an alien enemy 14 years of age or older. Now that gets into language of the law and interpretation. That's very important in criminal law. So in this case, if you are an alien enemy 14 years of age or older, you can be deported without really any much say. The court says, well, yeah, so you do have the right to challenge and say, I'm not a member of Tren de Agua, or I am not 14 years of age or older. If you can prove either of those, then you don't have to get kicked out. So this leaves the door open for every one of these guys to say, no, you can't deport me. I want to go before the judge, and I want to prove that I'm not a member of Tren de Agua. So literally what this did was this opens the door for them to gum up every deportation because every one of these gang members can say, no, I'm not a member of Tren de Agua. They can argue it over and over and over again. And that means that not one of these can get done without judicial review. And the court specifically said that, more specifically in this context, AEA's Alien Enemies Act detainees must receive notice after the date of this order that they are subject to removal under the Act. The notice must be afforded within a reasonable time and in such a manner that will allow them to actually seek habeas relief in the proper venue before such a removal occurs. What that means is the court agreed Boasberg is garbage because he was, but they're going to let every one of these guys go to court before they're taken out. So this, if the ACLU or some Democrat crew really wants to do this and wants to pay for the lawyers, they can just have lawyers there full time, and every one of these guys can say, nope, I'm not a member of the gang. You can't deport me, whether they are or not. And then we have to wait. And each one of these, so that will slow down the deportations to essentially nothing, right? Essentially nothing. The immediate, the lightning warp speed type removals that Donald Trump was seeking, that's over, right? That's over. So this is a mess. This is not a huge landmark victory. It's not even close to a huge landmark victory. It's a FUBAR mess. It's a FUBAR mess. Yet we have Bondi out on Fox News saying this. Look at this. Here we go again. We'll play it again. This is what we have.
These liberal district judges thought that they could control our entire country's policy, Donald Trump's policy, on keeping America safe.
They can. They can. It's just a different court.
They cannot do it. And this was, again, a landmark ruling.
No, it wasn't. There was nothing landmark about this. We're in exactly the same spot. The venue was wrong. Habeas corpus still has to be offered. And we still have to, and now we have to provide notice everywhere. We're on notice from the SCOTUS.
For the rule of law yesterday, and it's so important because these flights will now continue. These terrorists, they are foreign terrorists. They are alien enemies to our country, and we will continue to deport them.
And the Epstein list are full of pedophiles. Are you doing anything with them?
We are going to keep America safe, and a liberal district judge is not going to stop us. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled yesterday.
No. That is not what they ruled. I don't think she read the case, folks. I don't think she even read it. I don't know what this is. She's so busy getting on Fox News that she can't even read the damn cases. I got to be honest with you. This is a joke, right? You don't have to be a genius lawyer to figure this out. This is some basic law school stuff. This isn't complicated. This is like some basic law school stuff. The court said you have to give these guys notice and the ability to challenge these things. They're just going to gum up a different court. It doesn't matter. Nothing they're saying here, man, nothing she said is accurate. It was not a landmark ruling. They didn't slap down any judge. They didn't do anything of the sort. Nothing of the sort. Nothing in this ruling is what she's saying. I don't understand it. I mean, the court even acknowledges it. Look at here. Look at here. For all the rhetoric of the dissents, today's order and per curiam confirm that the detainees subject to removal orders under the AEA are entitled to notice and an opportunity to challenge their removal. The only question is which court will resolve that challenge. For the reasons set forth, we hold that the venue lies in the district of confinement. The dissents would have the court delay in resolving the issue, blah, blah, blah. That's irrelevant. But essentially, this is completely meaningless. All this does is say they've got to go to a different court. All this did was end the forum shopping. This didn't fix anything. Bondi's out here taking a victory lap, calling it a landmark ruling. It wasn't. It wasn't even close. It was a loss, to be honest. It was much closer to a loss than a win. I mean, the courts were, it was so incremental. It was so incremental. Folks, you want to know why I keep criping on Twitter and X about the fact that Bondi's not doing anything with Epstein people and why I keep saying I don't? It's because I don't trust her. I don't know whether she's an idiot, a liar, or what, but I don't trust her. And I don't trust her because of nonsense like this. How do I trust someone? Look at this. Look at this, folks. Here you got this buffoon. Landmark ruling. It's the rule of law. Oh, we're all saved. No, none of that's true. The court affirmed that these guys get a hearing every time. Every single time. All they got to do is say, hey, I'm not a member of Tren de Agua, and that's it. They get a hearing. The hearing, if you want to deport millions of these guys, that's going to take, I don't even know how long. This is going to move at a snail's pace at best. If we want to deport under the Alien Enemies Act, this ruling says that it's going to that every single one of these guys has to be given notice and an opportunity for hearing. This is not a big win. This is an absolute joke. And I got to be honest with you. This kind of stuff is the reason I don't care how many times people tell me, oh, something big's coming. Maybe, and maybe she's got some good lawyers working for her underneath, but she's making a fool out of herself. This was not a big win. There's no political spin that's a big win on this. And she doesn't sound lawyerly, right? I mean, this is an AG. I want her to believe she's a smarter lawyer than I am, right? She's got the AG spot. She should be a better lawyer than me. I mean, I'm a nobody from Ohio. If you're the AG of the United States and you're not smarter than me, there's a problem, right? There's a problem. And I don't see it here. What I see is this void, vacant dimwit keeps going out on Fox News every 5 minutes. Oh my God, we're going to landmark ruling. Oh, we put 3 gangbangers in jail. I mean, get off the damn TV and do something. I'm frustrated, folks. I'm frustrated. Donald Trump and Elon Musk are moving. They're moving at light speed. They're getting stuff done. They're tearing things up. But then we've got this. Our DOJ is not getting the job done. I see protests, the Tesla stuff. As Elon Musk has so famously said over and over again, we need to get to the heads of the stake. We need to put the organizers in jail. The zombies throwing the firebombs, they're not the problem. It's the people organizing it. When are we going to get to them? I don't know. When are we? I don't know. This is the problem, folks. When are we going to get to the Epstein list? When are we going to get to the Democrats behind this? All you that want to keep be patient. She's brilliant. She's got something going on. Oh, she does? What? Maybe she does. Maybe I'm wrong. I hope so. I hope so. But I got to be honest, right now, I ain't seeing it. I ain't seeing it. So, I mean, let's see what happens. I'm still praying that she proves me wrong. I'm praying that she's a super genius somewhere underneath and we're just not seeing it. But right now, I'm just not seeing it. And we need to do something with this because it's just, the stuff, we're just not getting it done, folks. It's just, the DOJ is not doing it in any way, shape, or form. I just, now I want to compare this with something. So let's talk about Bobby Kennedy. And I like Bobby. I'm a fan of Bobby's work. Bobby is one of the people, he worked in this long before I did. Health freedom was his long before I even knew about it. And I have nothing but respect for Bobby. But Bobby came out the other day and he's talking about the measles case in Texas. So we've got 2 kids that have died because of medical malpractice in Texas. And both kids, they claimed were killed from measles and tried to spin it as measles deaths. Now, neither one were actually measles. Both were medical malpractice. But, you know, the media doesn't care. So Bobby goes down to Texas and he says, quote, "The most effective way to prevent the spread of measles is MMR vaccine." Okay. Now, I got a problem with that because it's not true. It's not true. And Bobby knows it's not true. So I want to read you my response. So I put this up on Twitter. You can find it on my X feed. But let me read this to you. "I support Secretary Kennedy and I'm curious about this. He absolutely knows better. What evidence can he produce that the best way to prevent measles is MMR shot? In the 60s, initial work on the measles vaccine did include a few studies. There were numerous issues with each of them and no large-scale randomized clinical controlled double-blinded studies against placebo. Further, since measles vaccine was combined to become MMR shot, there is even less actual data. This means that there is no science to back up his statement, just propaganda." And that's the truth, folks. There is no data. There is no science. There are no tests against placebo. No clinical controlled randomized double-blinded studies against placebo to demonstrate absolute risk reduction of the MMR vaccine. None. Not an absolute risk reduction of death, not absolute risk reduction of symptomatic disease, and not absolute risk reduction of transmission. There is no data. Now, we're supposed to follow the science. Bobby says he's going to be the most transparent guy on the planet. Okay, let's see it. Show me the data. If you're going to say MMR is good, show me the data. Now, hold on here. I'm not going to rip Bobby. I actually like Bobby, but let me explain. I said there's a lot of propaganda around this. There's no shortage of efficacy study around the vaccines. That's true. There's a lot of that. But the problem is that efficacy studies are easily manipulated and typically full of confounding factors. Confounding factors that's epidemiology language. It means that it messes with the numbers. If the MMR vaccine was actually safe or effective, why no studies on the ARR, absolute risk reduction, on death, symptomatic disease, or transmission? All of us anti-vaxxers could easily be shown to be fools if the manufacturers did these, but they don't. So why? And please don't tell me it's for ethical reasons. There's plenty of people who refuse to get the vaccines that could be used as a control group. The reason there are no studies is the manufacturers don't actually believe they work. The manufacturers know better, folks. They know these aren't safe or effective. Bobby knows all this. I'm guessing he has a reason for what he is doing, but promoting the dangerous poison that can kill kids without actual science backing its benefit is a bad move. I appreciate Bobby, but I'm hoping he just doesn't say anything in the future rather than saying the wrong thing. So here's the thing. Bobby's in a tight spot. He's got so much corruption, so many bad people around him, that he's got to kind of keep his ducks in line and keep his cards close to him until such time as he can show more, right? That's the reality of this. He knows this is garbage. He knows what he said is garbage. He didn't believe it when he said it. I love and appreciate and absolutely believe that Bobby's going to get us to the right spot on this. I will back him or I'll sue him either way. But here's the thing, folks. I understand what he's doing and I can support that, but there's a big difference between not saying anything and saying the wrong thing. The issue I have here is not that Bobby is what he's doing, it's that he said the wrong thing. He should have said nothing. He should have said it's too bad about the MMR, it's too bad this, too bad that. Too bad about the measles death. And he didn't need to bring up the MMR. He didn't need to. There's no reason he should bring that up. He could have just stayed silent on it. He didn't have to say a word. It's irrelevant. And if he was asked, he could have said, well, listen, there are some problems with the treatment. We don't know whether, maybe the MMR would have helped. Maybe it wouldn't have. We don't know, because the reason they didn't die from measles, they died from mistreatment. If he would have said that, he could have avoided the topic and not lied. And the problem is that when you say they're safe, that means there's people that are going to take this based on his words. And every child that takes this right now is doing so with no data to back it up. There is no evidence of safety or efficacy of these vaccines. The efficacy studies are garbage. And so the problem is he put blood on his hands and he didn't need to. He didn't need to. And I just wish that he would have not said anything. Just point out, yeah, there are some issues with the treatment this child got. And we're looking into that, and we're looking to see what exactly happened. But, it's not good. And, what this kid didn't die of? The kid didn't die of measles, because that's the truth. The truth would have set him free. Instead, he had to tote the line. And so now later, when he tells the truth, his credibility is a little weaker, right? It's a little bit weaker. And so I love Bobby, and I hope that for the next time this happens, he just doesn't say anything. Don't lie about something that you know is not good. We all know these aren't good. We all know that these vaccines are trash. Don't try and tell us they are. Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Just own what's happening. And if you can't own what's happening, then don't say anything. We don't need lies. So anyways, now let's compare that. Let's compare that with Bondi. Now here you've got Bobby who's moving on stuff. We know he's moving on stuff. And I'm gonna make an excuse for Bondi here. Could it be that Bondi's doing the same thing? Because I know Bobby. I don't know Pam. Pam may be a great person. She may be a super genius. I don't know. I'm like everybody else here, trying to figure out what the hell's going on and why so far in we've got no arrests, and why we're putting ourselves at national security risk by not doing something with these blackmailed Epstein clients. I don't know, but let's say, what if Pam is doing the same thing that Bobby's doing? What if she's playing the long game here? A lot of people on Twitter think that's what's happening. They talk about, what's happening here, what's that. And I don't know. I can't prove it. I can't prove it. I can't prove that's what Bobby's doing. I'm telling you that that's what I think he's doing. I'm telling you that, I've met Bobby, and a lot of people that I work with, my group, a lot of groups that I'm in, we all work with him. But I don't know for sure. I'm speculating. But I think that's what Bobby's doing. What if Pam's doing the same? Maybe. I don't trust it, though. I don't trust it. Part of the reason I don't trust it is, at least, Bobby's demonstrated historically he knew exactly what was happening with these vaccines. I mean, he's on record more than you can count. He knows better. Bondi, this kills me, folks. This kills me. Let's play it again. It hurts. It hurts.
These liberal district judges thought that they could control our entire country's policy, Donald Trump's policy, on keeping America safe. They cannot do it. And this was, again, a landmark ruling for the rule of law yesterday. And it's so important because these flights will now continue. These terrorists, they are foreign terrorists. They are alien enemies to our country, and we will continue to deport them. We are going to keep America safe, and a liberal district judge is not going to stop us. And that's what the Supreme Court ruled yesterday.
That is not what they ruled. That kills me. The reason that I have a problem is because I don't think she even read the ruling. I don't think she read the ruling. There's no way. I mean, that's just not what it said. That's not what it was. It isn't. I literally read it to you, folks. It's not what it was. So again, I don't know. But I'm trying to give everybody the benefit of the doubt to the best of my ability. But that just hurts my head. I mean, it just hurts my head. And the fact that she's on Fox News every damn day. I mean, can't you at least take a week off and pretend you're working? I mean, I get that part of your job as AG is to work with the press, but really? I mean, for God's sakes. Anyways, all right. I want to move on to some. Speaking of safe and effective vaccines, the flu shot is great. Everybody tells me you should get the flu shot. That's great, safe, right? Except for this, right? So check out my Twitter today. You'll see we've got breaking. I put this up yesterday. Get the flu shot, and you are 27% more likely to get the flu. Why? Well, because the science tells us. Follow the science, right? Fauci and crew, those to follow the science. We got to follow the science. We can't question the science, right? This, friends, is a study. It's a preprint from Cleveland Clinic. So 50-some thousand people, which is more than were studied in all the COVID. Than the entire Pfizer COVID approval was based on. 52,000 people. They look. The people who got the flu vaccine were 27% more likely to get the flu. 27% more likely. So it's a larger sample than was used for the Pfizer approval and or EUA. And it says that if you get the flu shot, you were 27% more likely to get the flu. How about that? So I'm just going back. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that Fauci and crew told us we have to follow the science. You can't question the science. So if the flu shot is now scientifically proven to make you more likely to get the flu, can we perhaps, get rid of the mandates? Not mandate that anymore. People are mandated to get the flu shot, right? Keep their jobs, a number of settings. Yeah. I don't know, folks. Am I missing something here? I mean, get the flu shot, get the flu. Now, just in case you were unclear, the COVID shots have also shown negative efficacy. If you get the COVID shots, you will get COVID. That's been demonstrated absolutely, no question. So you get the flu shots, you get the flu, get the COVID shots, you get COVID. Someone pointed out in the comments that you can't compare the COVID and the flu shots. One's mRNA, one's not. Well, they are integrating mRNA into the flu shots now, and so that's that. But they do have one similarity. Either one, you get it, and it has the opposite of the intended result. Unbelievable, huh, isn't it, folks? But yet we should go get the MMR shot because it's safe and effective too, right? No studies on that. No absolute risk reduction. But we're going to try it. By the way, let me see if I've got this here. Do I have this here? I should look and see. I've got a wonderful statistic on these MMRs. I got to see if I can find it though. MMR. Let's see here. What do we have? Going back to these studies, some of these historical studies, where they said that measles vaccine's good. So they've never tested the MMR shot at all. But there were a couple studies historically on the measles shot, and they were super awesome. So this one, for example, had a total of 46 participants. They weren't randomized at all. There's no randomization. There's only 46 of them. And The control group was unvaccinated. They just didn't get anything. The other group, so, normally you give a placebo or something so people weren't biased in their reporting and things like that. So no randomization, no controls, no double blind, nothing. So you wanted the setup to get an answer, right? So the fraudulent study. So you get that is the Stokes study, 100% garbage. Then you got the Krugman study, right? Krugman study. This was a solid 100 children. So this was 100 people. Again, an irrelevant sample size. No blinding, tiny little group. And they intentionally exposed the kids to measles. I mean, were they exposed consistently? I don't know. That's hard to say. They didn't check for pre-existing immunity. They didn't even check to see whether the kids had pre-existing immunity. They didn't handle the adverse event stuff properly. I mean, the whole thing was just garbage. It was just corruption. All these studies that they had were garbage. Then they had the Enders trial, another tiny little thing with 40 children. So there's literally no data available that's valid or useful, suggesting the safety of any of even the measles vaccine, let alone the MMR. So, this stuff's all consistent. Big pharma lies, people die, and they keep making money for it. So that's that. Yeah. All right, folks. I want to talk about tariffs a little bit. I also I'm going to go on a bit of a rant. Ben Shapiro's a weenie. Do you guys like Ben Shapiro? I'm sorry if you do. He's a weenie. I know he's much more well known as you got Daily Wire, but he's a weenie. He's a sellout. He sold out big during COVID. He's pushing the vaccines, all that nonsense, and it was reported that he got a huge amount of money for that. Well, Shapiro is that way. I mean, the guy is, he goes where the money goes. He doesn't care. Well, he's out griping about Trump's tariffs. Why? Because he's getting paid to do that. But I want to delve into tariffs, right? So for any of you guys that don't know, before I was doing the health freedom lawyer work, I had spent a few years as a banker and was into consulting and a lot of business. So this is something I'm very comfortable with. This is the kind of stuff stuff I've looked at. It's stuff I understand. And there's a lot of economic theories out here. And I'm going to break this down into just as layman as it gets, right? I posted this huge thread on Twitter on it, and you can see it here. And it was in response to Shapiro whining about Trump's tariffs. The tariffs, which I believe in. I believe tariffs are a good thing. Now, I will tell you, there is a big question mark on the tariffs, because when we bring jobs back to the U.S., they're going to build these new plants, and are they going to build them all AI robotic manufacturing facilities? Because if they do, then the job benefit won't be there for the middle class. So that's a big what if. The AI, transhumanist, robotic, that sort of stuff, that is a big deal. But let's pretend for a second that we're not there. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about tariffs. Let's talk about what's going on, what's happening here, right? So I break this down in a series of tweets. And we'll go through this one step at a time. As price frequently dictates sales, and the less expensive item usually sells more. Corporate leadership wants to make products as inexpensive as possible, so they can keep their product cheap enough to sell a lot of them, but still make the most money possible per product. The difference between the cost to make the product and the price of the product is the profit margin. Okay, so that's a very foundational thing, right? So why did we lose jobs? Well, we lose jobs and we lost manufacturing in this country because it became very, very expensive to manufacture in this country. It became expensive for a lot of reasons, regulatory reasons, wages, all sorts of things. But the key focus here, now a lot of people will blame the unions, and certainly the unions do put pressure on wages. And that upward pressure on wages does create problems. Workplace safety, all these things, it does create a situation where it's harder to keep manufacturing here because the cost is higher. But we as a people have agreed, and I agree with this. people should have a safe workplace. They should be able to unionize and get adequate pay. Now, whether or not you think the unions are corrupt and they're Democrat shill organizations, well, that I can get behind. But the idea of the union is something I support, and I support the union workers. I support or non-union, either way. But I support people being able to unionize, because if you've got a giant business, if you're, Jeff Bezos, or you've got an Amazon, or any of these other, that's the only way that the workers are going to be able to get anything done, is they have to have power to go against these kind of wannabe monarchs. So, I don't have a problem with the concept of the union. I do have a problem with the corruption and fraud that we see in many of them, but that's that. The thing is, though, is unions that is not the only problem, and not the most expensive problem. The most expensive problem is the overregulation, right? Our government, even with the unions, if our government wasn't sticking their nose into business so much, there wouldn't be an issue, right? Because let's think about this. Even though you can produce an object cheaper using slave labor in China, it's got to be a lot cheaper, because once you've produced it with slave labor in China, you have to build a factory, you have to teach the people how to build the product, you have to educate the people, then you have to ship the product from the factory to the ocean, then you got to ship the product across the ocean to the United States, then you have to ship it from whatever port it landed in the United States to wherever it is. The shipping, moving this stuff around is incredibly expensive. Incredibly expensive. Now, here's the thing. There's a couple factors that are really, really, really important to consider when we look at the cost of producing a good. The first, you've got the labor costs, and we've already talked about that, but let's talk about the regulatory income. Regulatory burden can be huge. You've got tax rates. That's very important. You've got the cost to obtain raw materials, right? So if you're going to build something, you got to have, it's going to be made from something, right? If you're going to build a chair, you got to have wood. If you're going to build, something out of plastic, you got to have the products that the plastic's made of, the petroleum products, other such things. So you got to have raw materials to make something. So manufacturing requires availability of raw materials. Well, in the U.S., Joe Biden wouldn't let us drill. Plastics are made from oils. If you don't have oils, you don't have plastics. So we didn't have oil. We couldn't, manufacturing is expensive, right? When you shut down drilling, you shut down manufacturing. When you shut down harvesting of wood, when you shut down mining, rare earth elements, all these things, you don't have the raw materials. Then you have to pay to import the materials. Well, that's expensive, because you also have to pay whatever other country, whatever price they're getting for mining it and for exporting it. If you can produce your own raw materials, you can become self-sustaining, and that's much less expensive. Biden and his environmental crap and the lies that Biden and the Biden administration put forth, and Obama did the same thing, destroyed manufacturing. Absolutely destroyed it, because we had to import the raw materials. Well, that's expensive as hell. So you've got to import the raw materials. Well, that's not a whole lot better than importing the finished product. So you got to have raw materials if you want to have manufacturing. So that's right, one of the regulatory hurdles. Then you have to look at the actual regulatory hurdles you face internally. For example, China pollutes like you can't believe. They pollute the environment like they don't care one bit about environmental pollution. The U.S., you can't sneeze without having a freaking hazmat response in most factories. It is ridiculous. The EPA is so up your butt. OSHA is so up your butt. And I'm all for safe workplaces, but there's a difference between safe workplaces and what OSHA's doing. We have just a monumental amount of overregulation in this country. And all of these different regulations, EPA, workplace safety, compliance, all the reporting and stuff that's required, to do everything. It is absolutely phenomenal. And what's happened is that the cumulative cost to make a product in this country, between us not having the available natural resources because they won't let us get them, and the cost of dealing with all this overregulation has become so high that it's cheaper to build a factory, train people, and make a product in China and then ship it all the way over here than it is to just build it here. So you got to understand that is a phenomenal amount of just insanity to get you there. So just the worst governance possible. So that's what's happening is we've got this terrible, terrible governance. And so we've lost it. Well, here's what tariffs do. Now, tariffs by themselves won't do this, but tariffs combined with Trump's rule. Now, Trump made a rule. You want to put out a regulation, you got to repeal 10, right? Trump is repealing and pulling back this overregulation. If you pull back the overregulation, you open up the availability for us to get our own natural resources, and at the same time you tariff. Well, guess what happens? At that point, it's no longer cheaper to make a product in China and ship it here. At that point, it's cheaper to make it here and ship it there. Guess what happens then? Instead of us, sending them and making, a few billion dollars off of them while they're making hundreds of billions of dollars on us, it becomes more even, right? Then it becomes competition between the American, economic system and the foreign economic system. It's a fair playing field, right? That's what Trump is doing. Now, we got to understand that this is a problem, right? This is a problem for a lot of reasons. And it's going to cause stock market disruption, major stock market disruption. Why? Well, because what's going to happen is there's going to be a period where the trade of goods and services is going to go off, and people are going to have, potential trade wars, all these different things. And more importantly, all these countries that invested in building factories in China, well, now if they want to have something in the United States, they've got to build their factories here. So there's an additional investment in the United States. Now they can still have a factory in China. That's fine. But if they want to bring something to the U.S. to sell, they got to build it in the U.S. That is a dramatic change. So all these factory companies will have to start manufacturing here now. That's going to bring manufacturing back to the U.S. Doesn't mean that we're going to shut down manufacturing in China. It just means we're going to build our stuff here instead of paying them extra to bring their stuff to us. This just makes sense, right? This makes sense. We can't be competitive if we don't build anything. We can't win the economic war if we don't. And what happens if we don't do this? Well, we're not building anything in this country, folks. We're not building. Right now, we are building nothing in this country. If we don't start building things, what happens? Our dollar is fiat. It's not based on gold. It's not based on anything. It's there because it's there. So if we want to trade with another country, we've got to give them something of value. If our dollar is just a piece of paper, well, it's not really a good deal. If we've got goods or services that the other country wants, well, then that works, right? We can trade that, right? So we've got value. If we don't, all we've got is this piece of paper that we say is worth something. Well, that's going to fail, right? That's not going to continue forever. So what will happen is eventually the dollar will collapse entirely. And then our economy's over. We're done. Because we don't make anything. We're going to have to we're going to have to try and buy it from someone else, but we can't buy it from someone else because we have nothing to buy it with, because they don't care about our money. They don't care about our dollar. If the central bank digital currency, if the foreign owned, because we're going to have central bank digital currencies, folks. I'm fighting it. We're going to try and keep it private. We're going to challenge the Constitution. We're going to do everything we can. But the reality is the digital currency is coming. If that's not controlled by the U.S., we're done. We're done. The BRICS, controlled by Russia, China, that crew, they pass that stuff, and we're not producing any goods or services. Get ready. The Great Depression will look like a warm-up. It'll be a joke. our country will collapse, our economy will be collapsed, and it will do so on a level that we cannot come back from. And the bad guys around us will make sure we can't come back from it. So this is kind of the end of the road for the U.S. if we don't do this. Ben Shapiro, a little weenie here, talking about he doesn't like this. Well, this is the only path forward. And I'm guessing Shapiro's so smart enough to know this. I'm guessing he's just selling out because he's selling out. But there will be disruptions in this, right? Though it's absolutely necessary. Now, I said I was going to get back to this. I want to. The one issue that we have is bringing manufacturing back to the U.S. will create jobs, but the question is how many and what type, right? The day you start building a factory in this country, you've got American jobs. So we don't have to wait 5 years for the factories to open. The day they start, you got construction jobs day one. Those will eventually turn into manufacturing jobs and others. The question is what kind of, so once the factory is built, the question is it an AI robotic factory or is there human employment? Now, there'll be some jobs because we'll have to support the computers, the robots, AI, but how many? And the answer is we don't know. The one big question mark with this whole plan is what happens with the AI and the automation. If they build these factories without any human workers, what happens? And that could happen because, part of the Great Reset, part of this, that, and other, well, they're building new factories. So it's not like they have to fight existing unions. They're building them here. So nobody's going to fight with them and say, no, you can't build it here if you use robots. So, the question is, how are they going to build these? And I think you're going to see an explosion in AI and automation, those sorts of things in this country. That's my money on where jobs are, at least until the AI is smarter than us and doesn't need us to have those jobs. At that point, I don't know what we do. We're all kind of screwed. But that's the problem of AI. That's always been the problem with AI. And no one really has a good solution for that. But at the end of the day, there is no alternative to this, folks. We either start manufacturing or, these jobs, we're going to be an economic joke. China is so far ahead of us. I believe last year they built more ships than we built in all the years combined since World War II. China is so far ahead of us in terms of manufacturing and economically right now. We are not the world superpower at this point. We may be a superpower, but we are not the. China, I would argue, has surpassed us in almost every way. So, the idea that this is it's not an optional thing, unless we want China to just take over the world, we don't have a choice on this one. So I'm appreciative that Donald Trump is doing it. I'm appreciative that we've got a shot, but we've got a lot of work to do here. So anyways, thank you guys for listening. Enjoyed the show today. Had fun doing it and appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow